AP 120, Chapter 17, Topics, Structure of Kidney. So we are moving on to the urinary system. And the urinary system looks deceptively simple. 2 kidneys, 2 ureters, 1 urinary bladder, and 1 urethra. It turns out the inner workings of the kidneys are rather complex. So, functions of the urinary system includes maintaining normal concentration of electrolytes and water in the blood, basically maintaining the proper composition and pH of the blood. And since the blood is such a critical tissue in our body, this is an unbelievably important function in maintaining homeostasis. Also functions in helping to control red blood cell production as well as blood pressure. Blood pressure and the volume of the blood are closely tied together. And then, of course, the storage and elimination of metabolic wastes via urine. So we've got to get rid of the excess somehow. So kidneys. Kidneys are reddish brown bean-shaped organs. They have a tough, fibrous outer renal capsule. And it turns out the right kidney is positioned slightly lower than the left kidney. And this is because the liver, being such a large organ, requires the right kidney to be displaced somewhat inferiorly. All right, the kidneys are directly attached to the posterior abdominal wall, as we can see in this transverse section of the abdominal cavity. And they are near the vertebral column, which gives them a slight bit of protection by the ribs 11 and 12. They are not surrounded by the peritoneum. Instead, they are attached to the posterior wall by a thick layer of adipose tissue and other connective tissues. When you look at the kidney, there is this space called the hilum. The hilum is the area in which structures are passing into and out of the kidney. Blood vessels, nerves, lymphatic vessels, and of course the ureter is forming. Basically, as soon as the structure passes the hilum, it is officially the ureter. And then the hilum leads to an area referred to as the renal sinus, where we don't have the official functional kidney tissues, but it is still considered inside of the kidney. So within the renal sinus, we have the renal pelvis, which is a funnel-shaped sac that then divides into the major calyxes, that then divide further into minor calyxes that are important structures for transporting urine out of the kidney. So this is sort of the plumbing inside the kidney. Here is a cut kidney, so we can see the outer kidney tissue, and in the inside here, minor calyxes going to major calyxes going to the renal pelvis. Doesn't look nearly as impressive as it does in the cartoon. And then once this tissue passes the renal hilum, it becomes the ureter, carrying urine to the urinary bladder. All right, in the kidney tissue proper, we have 2 distinct regions. We have the outer renal cortex, which is a lighter color and does push in deeper in certain areas. And then we have the renal medulla, which is all of these sort of triangular shaped darker tissues. So renal medulla, all of these different smaller units. Renal cortex, the more superficial, lighter colored tissues, as well as where they go between the darker tissues. So each of these sort of triangular shaped darker tissues are called renal pyramids. So you have many renal pyramids, each one fitting into a minor calyx. Its apex is called a renal papilla, so the renal papilla of the renal pyramid fits into the minor calyx. And then with the renal cortex, the areas where the lighter tissue goes deeper into the kidney, between the pyramids, those are called the renal columns. So the renal columns run between the renal pyramids. And all the renal pyramids together equal the renal medulla. Nephrotosis is an inferior displacement of the kidney. So basically it somehow becomes detached from the posterior abdominal wall and displaced inferiorly. This is dangerous because As you can see, the displacement of the kidney can cause it to be rather significantly moved inferiorly and can lead to kinking or blocking of the ureter, which would then lead to a blocking of the urine, which would be very painful and also would make the functions of the kidney less functional. All right, kidney functions: regulating the volume, composition, and pH of blood, including secreting green hormone renin, removing metabolic waste from the blood, especially urea, controlling the rate of red blood cell formation by secreting the hormone erythropoietin, and releasing activated vitamin D. Vitamin D ready to go to the small intestines and increase calcium absorption. So here is a model of the kidney where they filled in all the spaces for the arteries and veins in red and blue, as well as the minor and major calyxes in yellow. Pretty amazing, and you can see here pretty quickly how important blood flow through the kidney is, because again, the kidney is regulating the composition of blood. So it all starts with blood arriving via the renal artery. That'll then split to the segmental arteries, which will then split into the interlobar arteries running between the pyramids. The interlobar arteries will then become the arcuate arteries, arcing over the top of the pyramids. And then they'll push into the cortex, becoming the cortical radiate arteries. So again, renal artery, segmental artery, interlobar artery, arcuate artery, cortical radiate artery. And then the blood will eventually leave the kidneys going in basically the same path, but of course now it is veins. So we have the cortical radiate veins to the arcuate veins to the interlobar veins to the renal vein. Then of course we have the connecting area, and on the microscopic level connecting the arteries to the veins. So we have from the cortical radiate vein, from the cortical radiate artery, we have blood traveling into the afferent arterioles, microscopic structures leading to a capillary bed called the glomerulus. This is inside of the nephron, which is the functional unit of the kidney. And then from this capillary bed, from the glomerulus, blood will exit via the efferent arteriole and then go to a second capillary bed called the peritubular capillaries. And then from here, enter venules and eventually make it to the cortical radiate veins where the blood will exit the kidney. So in the kidney, we have this interesting arrangement where two capillary beds are connected by an arteriole. It's the only place in the body where this happens. So again, here's just another view. The yellow tubing is the nephron. Again, cortical radiate artery, blood arriving via the afferent arteriole enters the glomerulus, which is a capillary bed that is inside part of the nephron, and then blood exits via the efferent arteriole and enters the peritubular capillaries, and then from there, the venules to the cortical radiate veins, etc. And that is it for this part of the lecture.